Back again for a third video. Y'all, I'm a regular. I think you're stuck with me. Today's video is going to be a July wrap-up. Books I read, books I started to read and have not finished yet, books I may not ever finish because I am not feeling them in any way. So yeah, let's get into it. I read a lot of ebooks and audio and listened to a lot of audiobooks this month, so I did a solid because I like a good visual and printed my Bookstagram pictures, and I'll be using them to put up for everybody. Probably should have folded them prior to this video, but hey, I'm a work in progress. So the most recent book that I finished is a NetGalley ARC that I received called So Glad to Meet You by Lisa Super. This is a YA contemporary that follows two characters, dual perspective, boy and a girl, who had a brother and sister that were dating and 7 years prior took their own lives. Jump 7 years ahead, and the female lead character finds a top 10 bucket list that the couple had written prior to committing suicide. So she brings it to the brother's attention. They are not friends, they have no relationship to each other than they both share this really horrible thing that they went through together. And together they decide to kind of, it's not a road trip story, but they take a lot of little road trips, so it can kind of fall into that category. But they take these little trips and try to complete this list the best way that they know how. I'm not super big on YA contemporaries. I have to keep it to like one a month. The angsty, I have all these issues that could easily be solved with one simple conversation, drives me insane. Which is, you know, typical. That's how young adults, high schoolers are. So I get it, but it's not my favorite thing. So I try to skip them. I gave this a 3 stars. I really liked the ending. So that definitely helped. I would even say it's more like a 3.5, 3.75 area, solely based on how much I liked the ending. Next up was Shadow and Bone. Why did I wait so long? I don't know. Leigh Bardugo. New potential favorite. I have said in another video that I loved this book. I love this book so much I went out to buy the sequel before I had even finished. I was about 30 pages from the end and was like, yo, gotta get in the car right now. Yeah, The Dark Lane is my bae right now. Hopefully he stays bad because that's a thing I'm into in the book world, not in real life. Please don't be mean in real life because it's not nice. Book 3, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Oh, I should have said 5 stars if you couldn't have guessed. Book 3, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Obviously I have read these. I am going through and listening to them for the first time, so that's really cool. I believe there are 2 different audio versions of this series. That's what I've heard anyway, but I'm listening to, I don't know. I'm horrible at narrators, and it sucks because narrators really do make or break the story sometimes, so I should get better at learning them. But I am listening to a male narrator, and I just adore it. He sounds exactly like Hagrid, and it's amazing. Book 4, Frostblood. Ooh. This is by Ellie Blake, and I feel like this is a series that really just didn't get the hype that it deserved. I mean, I loved it. And that was an audiobook. I loved the narration. I loved the story. It was like the kind of audiobook that I didn't just listen to in the car. Like, I would come in and while I was making dinner, I'm listening to it. While I'm showering, I'm listening to it. I really enjoyed it. It's in the same vein of like Red Queen and all those, like, this side hates this side because this side has this kind of blood, or, you know, money, or this race or that race. It's like that. with Fire Bloods and Frost Bloods. My video cut off. I am still learning about this stuff. It's fantastic. Anyway, I believe I was just discussing Frost Bloods and Fire Bloods. And yeah, I have the sequel on hold at the library. I've got about 4 weeks left, and I requested it about 3 weeks ago, so that's good. Somebody's reading it. Next on the list is Beast, A Tale of Love and Revenge. Oh, I'm really bad at giving ratings too. Frostblood, 4 stars. Beast. The thought was there. I don't even really know how to talk about this book. I couldn't give it a rating. NetGalley sent me an arc. Problems. Lots of problems. I will post a link to my blog review down below because I can't even really say what I feel, but all around just problematic. I don't think the intent was to come off as a rape apologist story, but it kind of really did. Yeah, I can't really talk too much about it because it's just hard to put into thoughts. It took me like 2 or 3 days to actually write my review for it because it just didn't come across the way that I think it should have. How I read it, how things are currently in the world, I just feel like it was maybe not put together the best way that it should have been. After that, I finally did this. I had been reading this off and on for months. I'm really excited because Amy Kaufman and I spell our names the exact same way, and that never happens. Shout out to all the Amy's with an IE in the world. That's awesome. I wanted to love Illuminate. I did, but in the end I just didn't love it. I will continue with the series, but it's not even close to the top of my list. I just wanted it to be so much more, and I felt like it fell flat. And maybe part of that was me because I would put it down and pick it up a couple months later, put it down, pick it up. It just didn't suck me in the way that I really had wanted it to. I gave it 3 stars. Like I said, I'll pick it up. It's not an urgent thing for me, though. Favorite book besides Shadow and Bone that I read this year? Fox. So Fox is by Nadine Brands. Sorry for butchering. And it is a fantasy retelling of the Guy Fawkes Day. Remember the 5th of November, blowing up the Parliament. In this world, instead of it being about religion, I guess it's a strain of religion, but it is over people who can use objects of a certain color to manipulate that object. Which it's very hard to explain, and at first I was a little confused, but basically if you're, you know, one of these like chosen people, you can get this, you bond with a certain color. Like if you bond with green, then you can use like, you know, green nature, like trees and grass and all, to manipulate that to your advantage. I know this sounds really weird, and I'm just gonna stop explaining it because it doesn't sound good coming from my mouth. But it was, I received a NetGalley of that, and of all of the arcs that I've received, I would say this is my second favorite, behind Reign of the Fallen, which was absolutely, hands down, my favorite book of the year so far. Fox came out July 10th. Highly recommend if you like fantasy. And I'm not big on historical fiction, but this was like historical fantasy fiction, and it worked really well for me. The first book that I had finished this month was an arc that was due on July 1st. I had also received, this was a sequel And I think it's only a duology, but it was definitely left open for a third installment. And that is The Edge of Over There by Sean Smucker. My picture sucked because my ARC didn't come with a book cover, which is kind of disappointing. Even though this is a sequel, a lot of people have been leaving reviews like, I had no idea it was a sequel, it read well as a standalone, and I really enjoy when books do that, because this one's in particular, and some other books, they don't advertise that it's a sequel to something. The first book in the series is The Day the Angels Fell. I didn't think I was gonna like it, and then I wound up really liking it, so when I saw that NetGalley had that up, I was like, ooh, yes, sequel. This story follows, it's hard to say without giving away what the first one discusses, but this one involves New Orleans and Marie Laveau. So if you are in any way interested in New Orleans and old Southern Gothic history, it does touch on that, and I love it, so that was kind of my selling point. Books I started. This one, hopefully by the time this video is posted, I will have finished it, because it is a NetGalley ARC, and it is due on the 31st, and I'm filming this ahead of time because once the 31st hits, I'm going to be balls deep in trying to get booktubeathon stuff done, and I know I'm going to have to focus every free moment I have to that, so I want to get all of my videos out of the way. Grace and Fury by Tracy Banghart. Grace and Fury follows two sisters, and it's, when I was describing it to my mom, she was like, oh, it reminds me like kind of like Cinderella, and I was like, not really, but that's a good jumping off point. It follows two sisters. One is kind of a rebel. One wants to be the, you know, doll of the kingdom, wants to be a queen. And then something happens and they are put in the opposite roles. The one who wants nothing to do with law and the kingdom and the king winds up being in that situation. At the beginning, I'm getting a lot of Selection vibes from it, but not as fluffy, because there's a lot more fantasy feel to it than the Selection. Not that there's anything wrong with the Selection being fluffy, that's part of why I love it. But it's similar. There's a group of women vying for this attention from the king, kind of thing. So I am, I think, 37% into it was what I ended with last night. I think I only have like another like 2 hours and 45 minutes left in it, so I shouldn't have any issues pulling that one out before the end of the month. Pulling that one out before the end of the month. The third one that I am kind of in the process of reading, or second one that I'm in the process of reading, I started for Retellathon, and then when I knew there was no chance in hell that I was going to get it done for Retellathon, I was like, well, it's good, but not good enough to keep me going right now. And that is The Shadow Queen by CJ Redwine. It is, since I read it for the Retellathon, a retelling. I don't even, seriously, I've read so much so quick since then that I can't even like remember what it is, like what's going on in it. But I remember like in the first like couple of pages I was like, damn, this is brutal. So I did like that, and I like the general vibe of the characters. I like the relationships of the characters. I like that CJ Redwine's not scared to gut us, because there's definitely a couple of things that have happened so far that I'm like, oh Jesus, why? So I'm definitely gonna finish that at some point. One I am currently listening to and really loving is Everything You Want Me to Be by Mindy Mejia? I don't know. I really enjoy listening to adult psychological thrillers, mysteries, suspense, things like that. Reading them, I feel like I have a little bit of an issue with. They don't always hold my concentration, but I love to listen to them. So I try to listen to one of them a month. That one's really good. It's told from 3 different perspectives. A girl who ends up dead. Her story is told while she's still alive. One of her teachers slash drama director guys. And from the detective who is also best friends with the girl's father. So it's 3 pretty good perspectives and a whole lot of story, but it's not so much story that you're drowning in it. So it's really cool. Lots of characters, very easy to keep them all straight, which is a credit to the author, because I feel like sometimes when you have a ton of characters, you end up drowning in no depth or so much depth that you can't even keep them straight. So good. The second to last book that I am in the process of reading, and honestly have no desire really to continue with it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I let it expire from the library, and I don't care if I ever get it back. And that is Tempest and Slaughter by Tamora Pierce. I feel like this book gets a lot of good buzz, and maybe I went into it wrong. I like to go into books not knowing anything, really. Just kind of knowing, yeah, that's fantasy, or yeah, that's a memoir. Okay, so I went into Tempest and Slaughter thinking that it was YA, and I feel like it actually is more of like a middle grade on the cusp of YA. The main character, and I can't even remember his name because this is how little I care about this story, is like 11 or 12, and I didn't realize that. So obviously he reads very young, he acts very young. I'm not feeling the whole vibe. I think if I had known that it was going to be a 12-year-old character, then maybe I could have got my mindset in the right place and been like, okay, cool, we're going with like this little ass boy who doesn't know anything about the world. That didn't happen, so unfortunately that may be a do not finish from me. I don't know. We'll see. If it's available one day when I've got nothing in my audio, because I was listening to it, then I might go back to it. I think I'm about halfway in. I can't remember. Let me see. I use Bookly, by the way, which is awesome to keep track of your app, or keep track of your books, your read time, things like that. Oh, I have only read through 3 hours and 20 minutes of it. It says, it predicts I have about 8.5 hours left. I have no desire to get 8.5 hours back into that world, so we'll see how that goes. And the last one, which has been an ongoing read for me, is Outlander. So I started this months ago, and I love it. Diana Gabaldon is a great storyteller, really good at building the scenes, building the characters. I love the way that she writes, but it's I need to focus, and it takes me a lot longer to read these kinds of books as opposed to like YA and things like that. So I really do enjoy it. I'm just over halfway. That's really all I've got. I'll see you later.